Greetings and welcome to another episode of Super Speak Sundays. I'm your host, James the Orator. As you know, this is a place where we highlight the accomplishments of just ordinary people who have gone to do extraordinary things. And the format doesn't change. The format does not change. We have another great interview that we're going to do today. I want to ask you all. I know that that you're busy, but we definitely want to continue to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want you to subscribe. We want you to comment. We want you to share with your family and friends. We are just, loaded up with videos, and folks are waiting to be interviewed, and we're just excited. Our guest today, and I want to, if you think about this, and this is a very, very timely guest that we have today. How many times have we left a party or something and we're driving and we see lights flashing in our back rearview mirror, and we don't know if it's for us or the next guy, and the heart starts to pumping, and you find out that, hey, you're the guy that needs, or lady who needs to be pulled over. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. So we have somebody today who not just specializes in that area, but so many other areas. Let me read his information, his bio here. Why is Indiana criminal defense and personal injury attorney Mark Nicholson called the battery man? It's because his first criminal jury trial was a battery case. Mark is a people helper lawyer. He has faced travesties and knows what it's like to be behind bars, face mistreatment, and fight for justice. His prior prison experience has given him passion for helping people. Mark's perspective is unique and often frustrates the opposing party, especially prosecutors. He is dynamic, aggressive, and trustworthy. Attorney Nicholson is an award-winning attorney. He has an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, a 5-star rating from previous clients. His primary focus is criminal law, particularly battery cases, personal injury, and civil rights. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our guest, Attorney Mark Nicholson. Attorney Nicholson.
Hello.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for joining us here on Super Speak Sundays. It's a pleasure to have you. You have such a compelling story, and I am excited about getting into it and hearing your journey. But before we get into the substance of our conversation, we always start our shows with a quote. And when you see this quote, what we're going to ask you to do, I'm going to read it, and then we're going to ask you to respond accordingly. So the quote says, "My advice to other innocent people in prison is don't stop. Don't give up. Continue to fight. Don't lay down. The moment you lay down, that's when it's over." And that's from a gentleman who was exonerated, Hugh Burton. What are your reflections on that quote from Mr. Burton?
It reminds me of one of my sheroes, Sonia Sanchez. And, one of the things that she said was resist.
Mm-hmm.
And, similar to Nikki Giovanni.
Sure.
Their message is one of resist, and resist being defeated,
Mm-hmm.
resist giving up hope. And when I hear him say, don't give up, this gentleman resisted being broken through all those years of false incarceration.
Wow.
And so immediately when I started reading that quote and listening, you read it, and myself reading it, I thought of those two great writers that talked about that. And that's a message that I believe in and also try to preach and practice myself.
Absolutely. Now, your law office, you all specialize in a number of different areas, but your first case, and they call you the battery man, so that's easy to remember. The battery man, someone who charges you, someone who takes care of making sure that you have what you need. Talk about your mantra, the battery man, or your I guess your superhero name, the battery man. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's also interesting because today is National Superhero Day.
Okay,
So
all right,
I appreciate you having me on here for that. And there are superheroes in many forms, and some of those are doctors and firefighters and
sure.
teachers and nurses and things like that. But the first criminal jury trial I did as an attorney was a case where my client was accused of going to rallies, and they, allegedly didn't melt the cheese on her Big Buford. So the case originally they called it the Big Buford battery case
Okay,
because she allegedly went through the drive-through window and battered the manager of this rallies, and
sure.
all that really. She was found not guilty, and people thought that there was no way that we'd be able to win this case, and because there was video and all that kind of stuff like that. But we
Sure.
explained to the jury that this was a case of what in Indiana is called mutual combat.
Okay.
And there's a thing called mutual combat, and you engage in mutual combat, your defense of trying to say you're a victim or self-defense, things like that,
Sure.
it is, it makes it a lot harder to when you engage in a mutual combat with somebody.
Right.
And the juries understood that. They saw through the video, and then from that case where people thought there's no way he's going to be able to win this case, and then I had another string of battery cases and things that I happened to win. And then people's like, hey, the battery man,
The battery man.
yeah, you got a battery case. And then some attorneys had contacted me, that had some clients that were charged with various forms of battery, and they wanted my perspective on, and it kind of went on from there. But on another point you mentioned too is I do love superheroes, and I'm in, like, read comic books and things like that, so it all just kind of fit together.
Wow. And so your love for comic books came, I'm sure, early on in life, but becoming an attorney was not the I guess the traditional way, or the way that most people got into law. Talk about your experience and your journey in getting into law.
Well, my definitely going to law school was not something that I had anticipated. Keeping along with the superhero theme, I wanted to be in the military and serving combat, lead men in combat. I wanted a 20-year plus career in the military. But as sometimes happens in life, dreams are deferred, or things has happened, and things don't go your way. So while I was in college at Indiana State University, I was involved in an altercation that ended up resulting in one person being killed, another person seriously injured.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I was charged with murder. After the series, I had 2 trials because one of them ended in a mistrial. Ultimately, I was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and criminal recklessness, sentenced to 30 years in prison. And when I went to prison, I was all over the place. I was at Indiana State Prison, which is the most deadliest prison in the state of Indiana.
Sure.
It was at the SHU, Secured Housing Unit, which is Supermax, Indiana. It was called the Indiana Youth Center at the time. Wabash Valley. They sent me all over during my 12-year stay in prison. When I was released, I was homeless.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I call this kind of my angel story, where there was a man downtown Indianapolis who was passing out flyers in November of 2002, and people walking by, James, like they didn't even see him, like we often do. And I stopped, and I was like, he was like, help homeless veterans. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm a homeless vet. Can you help me? And he said, yeah, here's my name. Here's my number. Call this agency, which was the Hoosier Veterans Assistance Foundation.
Wow.
Now they've kind of changed their name to Helping Veterans and Family, HVAF. Mm-hmm. I called them. They said they never heard of this gentleman. They don't have people downtown passing out flyers, getting donations. Right. And I was about ready to give up. I was like, man, this guy was out here doing some scheme. But before I hung up, James, they said, but we can help you. We can get you off the street.
Oh, wow.
And they did. And so that's why I ended up getting in transitional housing. Fast forward a little bit later, I felt like the Lord put it on my heart about what I was
Yes.
going to do in life. And all I knew was the law. Went down to the law school here in Indianapolis, made some contacts.
Wow.
And started, working my way into law school, and had no clue whether I was going to be admitted to the law school. I had no clue if I was going to be able to be practice law as an attorney, and I am. So, and that's kind of like the short of it. I mean, there's more to it, but yeah.
No, I think that's a story of perseverance. It's a story of not giving up on yourself. So you leave home and you go to Indiana State as a college student. I mean, you have bright eyes and bushy tail. You're ready to go in and be a part of this college experience. And then something happens, and then you go from the college house to the jailhouse.
Well, actually, before that, after I left home, 8 hours after my graduation, I was on my way to United States Army basic training. Okay. So I went to basic training, and then I served in combat. So I'm in Panama, and I was in Panama filling out, college applications, things like that. So I actually went from the military barracks, to the college campus, and then from the college campus to the big house. So one of the things you pointed out is I had never lived by myself until I was released from prison, because I went from living at home to living in the military barracks to living on a college campus to living in prison for 12 years. So I was not able to live by myself until I was like 35 years of age. It was the first time I lived by myself.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Talk about your formative years growing up, because where did you grow up? Where's home for you?
Newcastle was a small town, about 40 minutes east of Indianapolis.
Okay. Talk about your rearing, growing up in Newcastle. What was that like, and how did that potentially lead to you ending up in prison?
Well, Newcastle's basketball Hall of Fame is located there, High School Basketball Hall of Fame. They also had the world's largest and finest high school gymnasium, which basically can seat the whole entire county, and it's a huge gymnasium. It's big, right. But it was predominantly, like I said, a white town. And, growing up, I was born in 1969. So, growing up, there.
That's a beautiful year. That's a beautiful year.
There still is, racist things, but there was, it was, it's more diverse now than it was back then.
Right.
So it was, kind of a, typical childhood in a small town and things like that. Nothing really, dramatic happening, and, any trouble, other than like the little, the school thing, but I never got like, expelled or arrested or anything like that. But I knew at a very young age, at the age of 8 years old, that I wanted to be in the military. That's all I wanted to do.
Right.
And my sister dated a guy that was in the Marine Corps, in the Army. And I told him I wanted to be in the Marine Corps. And then he was like, well, in the Marine Corps, you have to be able to know how to swim. I'm like, what?
Right.
I can't swim.
Right.
So he kind of converted me, to join the Army and stuff like that, I mean, I can swim now and everything, but
sure.
I wanted to go to the Marines because they had that nice uniform.
That's right.
But, so that's what I wanted to do, the Marines. But anyway, once I was in the, military, it was like I want to be an officer. I want to lead men into combat. And so the way to do that was go to the Army ROTC. But I was young, and I believed at that particular point in time in my life that being, a man meant, you drank, you fought, and you were very promiscuous. That was kind of my view of what manhood was, even though that was totally misdirected.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of led me to, the drinking and the partying and things like that. And so, yeah.
So fast forward. And so you end up at your first, I guess prison or stop. Describe what that first experience was like.
Well, it was very kind of like intimidating to go into the biggest cell house in the state of Indiana, C cell house, Indiana State Prison. You're talking about something that was like 5 stories high as far as floors of inmates. It's stacked, on top. So you got this big building, and inside this big building is another kind of building where everybody is like stacked
Right.
on top of each other, and it was huge. It was single man cells there, but everybody was running around, and
It's
and
chaotic.
there's very chaotic. They have like 2 guards to like that was like a 400 or 500 person cell
Oh
house.
man.
Yeah,
Wow.
now there's one thing that I did not really concern myself with that other people may concern with myself. I had always, been kind of like a fighter. That's
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I joined the military. I had been in combat, so I
Right.
wasn't so much concerned about defending myself.
Right.
That part I was okay with. My concern was my mental and spiritual health.
Oh
Would
wow.
I be in this
Wow.
environment and would it destroy me mentally and spiritually to
Right.
where I become a worse person?
Oh
You
man.
know,
Okay.
that was my biggest fear is am I going to come out of here so deranged, so mentally just out of it that
Mm.
I can no longer even function in society, become
Wow.
institutionalized. And that was my biggest fear walking into that prison.
And so what type of things that you do to combat that to keep you grounded while you because you say you spent 12 years. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So that's what I did, and what I encourage people to do are 3 things: exercise your mind, your body, and your spirit. And you exercise your mind because you're going to be able to know how to do certain things when you get out of prison, or even in prison, whether it's taking a test, whether it's reading books or whatever, keeping your mind active. Your body, because you're going to want to stay healthy to be able to defend yourself, or you want to be healthy. So if you get a job that you can, work for 8 hours without, having to take a nap. And then your
Wow.
spirit, because you're going to be hit from
Mhm.
all sides to do negative things, and you're going to need a strong spirit to resist those
Sure.
temptations.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I exercised all 3 of those while I was in prison. And one, I went to church. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. There are other people
Mhm.
that believe in Islam or whatever,
Sure. Right.
whatever their faith is. I did that. I went to the recreation. They had weights, or I
Right.
exercised in the
Right.
cell. And then also my mind. I took college class. That is actually where I ended up getting my associate's degree
Okay.
and my bachelor's degree, which ultimately led me to be able to get into law school. So I earned my degrees while I was in prison. So those are
Wow.
some of the things I did. I also stay up on the news. People used to laugh, like, why are you watching the news? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're in prison, like, you never getting out, whatever. But one thing, I was a news junkie, and I kept up to date with what was going on in the world outside.
Wow. I think those 3 things are so important. Even living outside of prison. I mean, we still need to be able to take care of those things because those things are foundational. Mind, body, and spirit are
Mhm.
things that are very important. And so, at what point, as you were getting your associate's degree and your bachelor's degree, at what point did you say, maybe I'll try to pursue a law degree? Were you actually studying or researching law while you were in prison?
No, that came after. So there used to be a book, and it may still be out there. It's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook, and this
Yeah.
was a big book that told you about all these
That's
professions and
right.
stuff. I wanted to be a photographer. I thought that's what my
Okay.
goal was. I'm going to be a photographer because I was like, well, I can no longer be in the military. And then I read in the book it said you had to have 20/20 vision. So I gave up. I was like, I did what Brother Hoon said. I was like, I was, oh man, I gotta have 20/20. I don't have 20/20.
Right.
I did when I went to prison. I lost some of my vision when I was in solitary confinement for 16 months in this small dark cell. But
Okay.
I went in, I had 20/20. But I thought, okay, well, I don't have 20/20, so I can't do it. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, other than I did not want to go back to prison.
You didn't want to go
That
back.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I was doing phone canvassing at an organization called CAC, Citizens Action Coalition.
Mhm.
And I was on the phone, and this person was asking me about my background. I gave them an edited version of my background, and they were like, "It seems like law is in your
Wow.
background, or something, or your future, or something."
Somebody lit
And
that fire.
yeah, and then that's when I went to bed in May of 2003. It was a Friday. I woke up Saturday, and I felt like the Lord put it on my heart that you need to go to law school. Now, prior to that, people had told me because I was what they call a lay advocate in prison,
Uh-huh.
where you represent people that are charged with violating prison rules.
Okay.
And so when I won a case, because it was during the time of Johnny Cochran, when I won the case, they would call me Johnny Cochran. Behind my back, if I lost the case, they say, who you have? They say Johnny Cockroach. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So and then people were saying, like, when you get out of prison, you should go to law school. Well, I didn't think I could go. One, I didn't have interest to go to law school. I
Right.
didn't think with a felony conviction I could even go to law. So that was just like, I totally rejected that until, like, I was out. And then that's when it got put on my heart that this is what you need to do.
Wow, that is a strong story. It's something you should be proud of.
Yeah.
I want to transition to your law practice, because now that we've built the foundation and people kind of know how you got to becoming a lawyer. Talk a little bit about what you offer, what services you offer through your law firm.
I will, but I want to mention one more
Oh yeah, please.
story that I hope can give some of your listeners and your watchers some hope.
Sure.
When I was in law school, I interviewed for a position of a law clerk for a judge in Marion County.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Johnson, been on the bench for 30 years, white man from the South, Republican. When I went in his office, he had elephants all over his office.
Okay.
And when he interviewed me, in the middle of the interview, he started. Now, I was just going because I wanted to get interview experience. I had no clue that I was going to get this job.
Right.
In the middle of that interview, James, he said, I've never done this before in the 30 years that I've been on the bench, but the Lord is telling me to hire you right now. Will you take this job?
You got to be kidding.
No, I'm not. And I'm telling you, we became great friends. He just recently passed, but he shared the same story. It's out there, but that was how I got my first job in the legal field as a law clerk, working for Judge Johnson. And that interview was an interview that on paper you wouldn't even think that I would get, because he's, stereotype, old white man from the South, the Republican. He's not going to hire no black man, but he did, and became like a second father to me.
Wow.
And I always want to let people know that even if you don't think someone's going to give you a chance, give them a chance and see what they do.
That's right.
So,
wow.
All right.
How did people treat you? I heard you mentioned that you were homeless, and you ran into this guy. But in terms of law school, how did people treat you? I mean, did people kind of treat you like he's a former felon, or he's a felon?
That's interesting. I'm glad you asked that question, because in law school, the first 2 years of law school, I was homeless, and people really didn't. Now the school, the administration, they knew, because but a lot of the students had no clue. They just thought I lived downtown. They didn't know I was sleeping underneath the bridge on Washington or Meridian, and then I was in a transitional housing, a homeless shelter.
Wow. Okay.
But they never came over to my house. Someone asked, hey, can we come over? I'd be like, nah, that kind of thing. But yeah, not tonight. But one of the things that really shocked me, James, is there were people that knew about my background that never changed the way they treated me, and I had no clue. And I'm like really nervous. I'm like, I got something I need to tell you. And like, what? I said, well, I was in prison and I'm homeless. They're like, oh yeah, I already knew that. I'm like, what? And then there were, I saw I was, Googling or whatever, and they happened to see something. Then there were others that didn't know that when I shared it with them, they thought I was making it up.
Right.
And it was one of the biggest compliments that I could get, is that someone didn't actually believe that I had been in prison, because, so I had never felt in the whole experience by the professors at the law school or any classmate any different. I mean, to show you how much I was respected, my classmates voted me class president.
Wow.
And the last year of law school, they voted me the graduation speaker. So
wow, that says a lot. You know what? That just goes to show you that you can never judge. I know this is kind of cliche, but you can never judge a book by its cover. As we walk through life and we meet people, we don't know what a person's background is.
Right.
But the only thing that we can judge them on is their character and I use my intuition. When I meet people, I let my intuition kind of lead me and say, okay, I'm getting a good, I'm getting good energy. I'm getting a good vibe, just like it was when I met you. I mean, it's just good energy. So That is a compelling story.
Thank you.
So I want to get into your practice, because I'm sure that there are listeners who have situations and they need someone to represent them, and so we want to make sure that they know exactly what you offer through your practice, to help them to become whole again.
Okay. Number one focus really is criminal law. That is one of the most passionate areas because it is one where a person is going up against an organization with unlimited resources. And I'm
A
talking about,
system.
a system
Yeah.
that is unlimited resources. That is the government, either the state government or the federal government. And they can crush you with false charges. Now, I won't necessarily, we don't have time for me to go into every single criminal
Right.
case that I, tell you for a fact that the police have lied, and I've exposed their lies and pulled people over for driving while black. And just, I mean, it is shocking. And when I get those cases, that is why I do what I do, because here's someone that is just trying to live their life and the police and the prosecutors are abusing their power. So number one really is criminal law. And then plus, I have personal experience with criminal law. So that's
Sure.
another reason why. But criminal law, that is my number one passion. And I focus a lot on that and battery cases and things. But all types of criminal cases. There's not a criminal case I will not take unless obviously there's some kind of conflict of interest, because
Sure.
For whatever reason there's a conflict, like the victim could be a relative of mine or whatever,
Right.
or something
Right.
like that kind of thing, but otherwise than that, there's I don't have any kind of limit on, I don't take
Sure.
these kind of criminal cases. And then also we do personal injury. And once again, it's kind of like a criminal case in the sense that you're going up against this big usually $1 billion insurance company.
That's right.
That's trying to tell you that your injuries aren't anything or whatever, and so people are hurting in those cases. And those are my two biggest areas are criminal law, and then the personal injury. We also do other civil stuff like the small claims, landlord tenant type stuff, and we do family law. But the two biggest areas, and we also do civil rights, because civil rights does kind of fall in with the criminal aspect of it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
We've seen an influx of men and women who have been exonerated, due to, not have, I guess, I don't know the correct term, but not having a preponderance of evidence. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. In criminal law, it is someone has to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the legal standard. And preponderance evidence is another standard that is used in like civil law. Yeah, preponderance.
Okay. So what do you think is attributing to us seeing a number of men and women who are being exonerated?
Well, it's interesting. I just put out social media post and article that talked about last year alone, over 2/3 of the exonerations were of African Americans.
Wow.
And what has led to that through the study was police misconduct and prosecutorial misconduct. So use one word or two, government, misconduct.
Okay.
Was like the number one reason people were exonerated, or back it up a little bit further. The number one reason people were falsely convicted or wrongly convicted was because of government misconduct.
Right.
Now that is shocking. So you take out, cross-cultural misidentification, people lying on the witness stand, bad attorneys, that don't know how to try a case or whatever, but government misconduct. And we should all be up in arms and want some kind of action taken, because if government misconduct is creating the majority of the false convictions, that means any one of us are at risk of being falsely convicted or wrongly charged with the crime because of that. And that's frightening.
It is. It really is. We know in the 80s, there was, mass incarceration showed us, its ugly head. And we had a number of particularly Black men who were incarcerated due to, drug charges and things of that nature. now that we see marijuana becoming becoming decriminalized in so many different states, what does that mean for men and women who are sitting in prison right now?
Well, hopefully, in Indiana, it's still illegal. So you're not really going to get any relief there. But hopefully,
Right.
what I would like
I mean,
to see,
holistically. There are men and women in other states.
right,
Yeah, we know situations here in Indiana, but right.
right. Now, what the law is in other states, since I'm not licensed to practice there, I can't really say.
Mhm.
But I can say overall, in general, that by the kind of like the decriminalization of marijuana, hopefully what that will do is people that have these long, prison sentences, that maybe they can get some kind of compassionate relief, or they can get some kind of a sentence modification, things like that, that would allow them to be released from prison, or maybe the cases just get dismissed. In Indiana, changing the topic just a little bit, they passed the law about not having to have a license to carrying handguns, which is going to be in July. What about all these people that have these convictions or are being currently charged with or serving time for carrying a handgun without a license? Kind of like with the marijuana thing. What happens there? And I love what the Marion County prosecutor has done in regards to just simple marijuana possession. Like, let's not waste our time, arresting folks for that. And of course, he took a lot of heat. But I mean, Indianapolis has some bigger issues that maybe some of those smaller towns don't. About having some marijuana on your possession, to me, does not equate to someone losing their life unnecessarily. And some of the violence that's going on in Indianapolis, that's where these police officers be putting their focus on. And hopefully Indiana will, maybe move to a place that's a little bit more tolerant to the marijuana, to legalizing marijuana.
Absolutely. We haven't even scratched the surface. We're definitely going to have to get you back on for a second, part 2, because, there's so many other things that we need to discuss in terms of law and what this means for people and their livelihood. But what I want to do, and this will be the last thing we do, but I want you to look into the camera. There's somebody maybe who you were in prison with, or someone who's in prison who may be watching this. What words of encouragement do you have for them in terms of not giving up the fight?
You said it, James, when you said don't give up. So if you're listening, if you're watching, no matter what state you're in, whether you are physically in prison or you feel you're mentally in prison, even out here on the street, do not give up. Exercise that body, mind, and spirit the best you can. Create a positive environment. When I was homeless and wasn't around anybody, I had to create a bubble of positive people that would give me positive feedback when I felt negative. Because you don't want people that are you don't want advisors encouraging you to do things that are going to make your situation worse.
Right.
So the steps that you need to take are remain positive the best of your ability. Try to find people that can be positive around you so you can continue to fight and do what's right.
Wow, those are some powerful words. Attorney Mark Nicholson, the battery man. We definitely, oh man, I'm losing words, man. You've given us so much today. It's definitely been a valuable discussion. Again, we thank you for joining us here on Super Speak Sundays. It's just been great. Thank you for being with us today.
It's been a pleasure and an honor, sir. Thank you.
All right. We will, like I said, maybe we'll get a call and we'll see about getting you in for a part 2, because there's a lot more that we need to discuss for sure.
I would be honored to do that as well.
Anything. All right. Until next time, we appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one. Ooh, man, where do we go from here? That was Attorney Mark Nicholson, the battery man. He has a hell of a story. I'll just put it point blank. He has a story that many people need to hear. He went from the schoolhouse to the jailhouse to the courthouse, where he's representing so many different people. If you have a need for a real attorney, and all of them are real, but I'm talking about someone who's been through, they've been in the mud and have been able to pull themselves out. Contact attorney Mark Nicholson, the battery man. He's ready and willing to help you. His contact information is here on the tickler, 317-667-0718. I'm sure if you even live in another state and you just have some questions or you want to be inspired by his story, don't hesitate to reach out. You've been listening to Super Speak Sundays with your host, James the Orator. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment, subscribe, share, do all the things you need to do to move this agenda forward. We'll see you soon. Peace.